thank you very much for the invitation. And let's see if what I can today present can be for interest for you. Yeah, first of all, a little history of me. I was beginning, after my studies in Barcelona of architecture, I was beginning to teach and to research in the University of Vienna, and there in the sections building, it's this sentence that is something important, I think, because defines what is modern architecture, modern art, modern design. And here in German, written, der Zeitele Kunst, means that every time have his own art, his own architecture. So in these times in Vienna, now 19 years ago from this photo, I make here a little metaphorical comparison, because in these times in Vienna, Adolf Loos was, I don't know if you know Adolf Loos, I was translating all his writings to Spanish. He was somehow, well, he was not hearing very good with this left ear, as I am having the same problem. But the question is that he was also hearing what's coming, or hearing what is of the zeitgeist, of the spirit of every time. And now I am supposing to explain to you something that also we need to hear, because it's as what is properly from our time, as the sentence of every time have his own art and his own architecture. So our challenge of every one of you, the architects, designers, artists, the challenge is to know exactly what is our time and what is the art and the architecture and the design that this time needs to have. So if we begin, a short view about my first approaches to architecture. In the beginning, yes, I was interested from architecture and biology, and I was living all my life next to the Gaudí's building. So all these have to do with what I will explain to you today. And also my first house was in solar passive house mode, until also this last house that you see in the screen. That was my first house also with green roofs. In the middle, I was also interested about the digital drawings. In the 80s, when I was beginning with digital drawings, this was a kind of programming, very complicated, because, well, we was fascinated in this time. So because with a lot of pages of programming, we arrived to have 3 or 4 lines in perspective. And for us, this was, wow, you can, with typing, you can draw something. No? Of course, now things are very, very different. But this was remaining in this moment. As the next slide that I explain what remains for now, for biodigital architecture. And these words are, of course, Gaudí's building, architecture, biology, solar passive house, digital drawing, scripting, software. Surrealism and expressionism is something that gives a kind of definitions and of background about what you can do and how you can interpret the biodigital architecture. But the first point was, or the main point was, when I was beginning to do the change to the biodigital architecture, founding the School of Architecture where I am teaching, and later, 20 years ago, founding the Genetic Architecture Research Group and Office, and the Master of Biodigital Architecture. So to explain what is behind all these points that we will see is a key concept that is the living beings, that works managed by by DNA chains, that at the end are information chains that you can today transcript in a kind of code that later you can also translate to zeros and ones. So we have something today very important, that is the possibility to link between the DNA codes and the digital codes. So this gives us a kind of genetic similarities that living beings, its works or are controlled by this kind of natural software, and digital beings, what we can design and produce in a digital way, it's also defined and controlled and managed by a kind of digital DNA, so to say. This, of course, is not so easy, but takes us to a position very, very different in history of mankind. That is, during thousands of years, people can only work in the surface of the things. But now with genetics, we can work inside of the intramolecular level, so that if we have the control of the order of how things grows, how things live, which functions they have, this gives a very, very big power and difference between what we could do before, that was only working in the surface of things. As I tell you, it's not so easy, because of course you need first to have this interactome map. That means you need to know exactly which genes works with which genes for have different functionalities. And it's not so easy, of course, to control. But thanks to bioinformatics, it can be. It's only a question of research. So understanding these 2 points, the possibility to work with bioarchitecture, so living beings that grows in the way that we need for our needs, and also knowing how we can manage that digital architecture, so designs that digitally can produce something with machines, with CNC machines, with 3D printers, etc. This gives us, as I tell you, these similarities that we was organizing into laboratories. 20 years ago, the first genetic architectures laboratory with geneticists working with architects. Here is our geneticist and another, and I am here. And the digital laboratory, where we have the machines, 3D printers, etc., where we can also begin to think and build something in a digital way. So, and then with these 2 possibilities, that of course we can take it alone, one of them, with all the power that biomanufacturing have, or all the power that digital manufacturing have, or we can think in a fusion of them, or we can juxtapose both possibilities that we have. And this is what we are doing from 20 years ago until now. From one side in the office as practice, as architecture and design. Here a lot of little images of projects, a market, furniture, benches, skyscraper, pavilion, bridge, door, museums, housing, etc., etc. And also from the research and from the practice we are teaching in the Biodigital Architecture Master. And here is a little of some examples of the images of the different workshops. Also here, images of the workshop of Matías del Campo, Carl Chu, Bernard Cash, François Roche, Dennis Dollens, Evan Douglas, etc. So a lot of also pioneers in digital architecture that was collaborating, was teaching also in our master. To say you that we have this institute, that is the Institute for Biodigital Architecture and Genetics, that, as you see, have 3 branches. So the branch of research that is managed by the research group, Genetic Architectures, the branch of practice of design that is managed by the Genetic Architectures Office, and the teaching branch, that is the Biodigital Architecture Master. So these 3 points is what we are doing in Barcelona, following these ideas. Here is a kind of diagram to see what I was speaking before about the power of biology and the power of digital. So what we are trying to do is this, exactly, the research and the practice and teaching about natural intelligence and artificial intelligence, about biological techniques and about digital techniques, about biolearning and machine learning, about biomanufacturing, about digital manufacturing. So this gives us really the point of the frontier of knowledge of today applied to architecture, design, and art. And of course, we are in Barcelona, so the big advantage is that we have Antoni Gaudí and all the works of Gaudí, Salvador Dalí, that was saying the works of Gaudí as really a kind of surrealist architecture. And we have also in our institute the philosophers about that they are speaking about emergent character of life, about complexity theories, the geneticists, about genetics, and of course the sustainability as the main point for as justification about all what this takes, and understanding that our cities needs to take advantage of this power of nature and this power of digital technologies, and this is what we are working on now. Some publications also, the teachers of the master and with the works of the students, we are making this series of genetic architectures books. Another is the conferences that we organize every 3 years, that we publish also all these books. And another series of books is the more monographics of different authors, and also events, exhibitions that we are organizing sometimes. But the point is, what is behind of all these organization and all these concepts and all what is really what justifies that we are involved in all these things? And the point is that our world is really in trouble, and all of you knows the problem of extinctions, of trash, of throw, of contamination, and all these with contradictions, because we are living in cities that seems more this kind of complex of boxes, more than a nice forest full of nature. But when we are asking about where we prefer to live, of course, people will say they prefer to live in nature and not in these boxes. But the contradiction is that our cities and our buildings are more close to this landscape of boxes as to a landscape of trees. And also the contradictions that Leslie also we are saying all this, that Mars, going to Mars and all these, and in only 2 weeks, 78,000 people want to go to Mars in a kind of trip of no return, of really without oxygen, with temperatures of 150 under zero, with storms of that takes the sun during 2-3 months. So in a very contradictory environment, when we have in our Earth so much spaces that needs more the attention of the research, and without the problem of oxygen, or without the problem of going 3 years in a trip, so expensive, without the problem of temperatures. So will be better that first we arrange and we solve the problems of our planet, as that we go to do worse things in other planets. No? In this sense, we was making a little project about 3D printed houses, and with the same resources that a colony in Mars will be built in the same way with the same technology, etc., but 1,000 times cheaper. We was making this project for building houses in Sahara, for example, because the point is, if we don't begin to think how to solve really our problems, not thinking in problems that we have not so close, what will happen with our planet at the end. No? So you see the movies Blade Runner, the 1 and the 2, that are prophetizing a kind of planet that really will be in trouble if we don't begin to do things that solves but now in all the world is happening this, because this is the city of Mexico in America, this is the city of Hong Kong in Asia, this is the city of Barcelona in Europe. Everywhere we have the same problems, and sometimes our problems goes to or makes travels to people that are very, very ecological. No? For example, in New Zealand, the most ecological country, they cannot go to the beach without all the clothes because the ozone hole is exactly in the position of New Zealand, and they have the highest rate of cancer of skin in the world. And so our bad behavior for the planet goes to other places that have better behaviors. So what we can do with this, because we have the responsibility to act from our place. If we are the profession that we have, but if we are architects, if we are designers, we need to act from our possibilities to act. No? And so as architects, what we can do is working with life. And this was a project that I was preparing for the mayors of Barcelona to say, okay, we can do a big garden, a big park in the roofs of Barcelona for have a very much better environment in Barcelona, that is the most dense city of Europe. But also thinking in this, that life is what can solve our problems very much easier, as I was telling in the beginning, the power of bioconstruction. And this is why I was making also this little project of building with living cells in comparison with the paradigm of modern architecture, as Barcelona Pavilion of Mies van der Rohe here. I'm telling that we need to begin to research about how to build with living cells. And in this way, we are involving in trying to do applications to architecture from biomanufacturing. So this is a biomanufacturing 3D printer that we have, and we try to do what we can really begin to think for apply to architecture. In this case is Professor Yomna Abdallah, that is working with me very close to research about these points. And also here we see the possibilities of work with edible materials, so that we can also think in edible architecture. All this is, I was proposing these comparisons between what was normally in proposed in 20th century and what we need to propose in 21st century. So in this case, is a sporopollenin house. That means that sporopollenin grows as a space, a house that can be able for habitat, and taking in account that sporopollenin is the most durable material, that organic material that grows from itself. So that it can be a good understanding of this, that this idea of let houses grow with the power of that nature give us, as let cities grow, whole cities, or also included let planets grow, because now with genetics we can think in a research that included not only building with living cells for walls, houses, cities, and landscapes, but also included to make satellites of living cells around. And in this sense, I was beginning with experiments of genetics applied to needs that architects are involved. For example, to have light by night. We was making with the gene that is the responsible of the luminescence, the bioluminescence of in this, for example, this medusa, but from other living beings that have also these kind of genes. This gene responsible of bioluminescence, we was putting in 7 lemon trees, so that you see the difference between the lemon tree that is not genetically treated and the lemon tree with this gene, in the idea of having a natural light, really, without installation, without electricity. And also in a second phase, we was organizing this also with bacteria, doing biolamps, and here in this case, illuminating a whole flat with biolamps. So a second phase about the application of natural light in architecture, in space. And a third phase was working with the genes of this bacteria, but putting it in the ornamental plants, so that we can have at home or in the balconies or whatever, in the parks, plants that also gives light in a natural way. And a fourth phase will be this kind of the genes of the most luminescent being that exists, that is this fungus, that we can, these genes responsible of luminescence, organize a better illumination in what we need. So in this sentence of Gaudí, it's interesting to see that he was really the first architect trying to go inside of the laws of the universe. So this is why he was arriving to the shapes of paraboloids, hyperboloids, helicoids, etc., for solve the structures. So the first architect working with structures of paraboloids, hyperboloids, that are the structures that are in nature, was Gaudí, because he was with this focus to discovering the laws of the universe in all its secrets. Of course, also with the challenge to build beauty, because as architects, designers, what we need to do is that the people is happy with the buildings that are beauty. If not, it's a little making a bad behavior for as architects. So, and so is how for about this idea for knowing the laws of the universe, the secret laws of the universe, for apply to architecture in our case, for apply to design in our case. This takes me to use the electron scanning microscope, and so I was researching about the microscopical structures. So the point that the amorphous forms of cells begins to organize in structure. So the first structure of how cells understand that needs to resist external forces are these that you can see with the electron microscope. I was researching, for example, here in pollen, in structures of pollen, and later to try to digitalize it and to print it or to cut it or to fabricate it with digital machines. In this case was kind of panels that was applied for a consulting room. And here at left is the same panels with the bio lamps that I was showing you before. And the consulting room was organized, yes, with these panels manufactured by CNC machines. And also later trying to do a pavilion in the same understanding of the pollen and radiolaria structures. That is curious to see that the vegetables and the animals have at the end the same microscopical structures, yeah, and the same also not microscopical patterns that are equal for all the living beings that you can find. And in this research, we was also producing digitally this little pavilion with the advantage that digital you can scale it in different scales. So we was also doing little lamps, a series of digital fabricated lamps, but also I was beginning some years ago in a series of furniture for 3D printed. And as you see here now, 3D printed, in this case is in the garden of our university. The point is that all this series, as you see, is with a kind of complex geometries that at the end you can only imagine it, or you can only design it, you can only produce it if you are doing this digitally. Here we have this what I call the radiolaria furniture series and the hyperboloid furniture series. Yeah? But the question is that the comparison that I am doing is that when Mies van der Rohe was thinking and designing and producing this chair, it was only possible to do in 20th century with the techniques of 20th century and not before. So this chair is son of his times, its times, is son of 20th century. But this hyperboloid chair, as the chair of Mies, is not possible to design and is not possible to produce before our times. So this chair is also son of our times. And this is related with I was speaking in the first slides when I was telling you to hear the zeitgeist, what's happened in our times, with which technologies, which ideas, and which concepts we are counting with them, and with what is the challenge to do a step forward to the frontier of knowledge and not to be very comfortable working as 100 years ago was doing Mies van der Rohe and all the modern architects. So this is our challenge to see what is really the designs and the architecture that our times needs or deserve more. And it will be only in the first sentence that I was putting to you from Vienna, if this design and this architecture is really of our times and not of times of before. So that is really counting with our last technologies and our last concepts, our last possibilities to do and to think and to design. And in this way, we will really participating in go forward in our technology, in our architecture, etc. Now I will show to you some different projects that we was doing from the office, and related, as you see here, every time from biolearning. That means what we are learning from nature, from natural intelligence, and what we can do with digital tools, with artificial intelligence, what we can bio-learning, what we can machine learning, what we can biomanufacturing, and what we can digital manufacturing. And in this case, this takes us, of course, to geometries that can only be managed by digital tools. And what digital tools allows you, this is what you can really propose. This was for a university there in Qatar, and that was inspired by a little drawing of Gaudí that was making a kind of little schools for in Tanger. But from this drawing, we propose a more actual project. And here another bench that we was producing in this idea of what can be drawn can be built. So at the end, if you are able to draw something, you will be able to build it. And only taking it as what is the most tension that you can introduce in the concept of things. And in this case, also mixing with real grass, so that the point is very comfortable, that the people can sit, can sleep, can in real grass benches. But if you think that everyone is in different positions, and you take all these positions together, and you make a fusion of the positions, in a way that only digital tools can do. So you have, again, this step more as the hyperboloid chair that I explained to you before, that only with digital tools you can conceive, you can design, you can think, you can manufacture these designs. Another building was this kindergarten that was in a place of wineries, and is very famous of wine, and this for taking the fruits for the wine is the grapes. Yeah, it's this way to put it as a kind of roof. And I was thinking that it could be a nice environment for the children to have this roof, and also take it from the structures, the microscopical structures. In this case was from kind of leaves that give us the possibility to think in spaces, in paraboloid spaces, and in the middle, this green roof of grapes, in a way as the Montserrat mountains that we have close to Barcelona are also doing in stone. So it's a kind of relation of this digital manufacturing structure for the children. Another project, in this case, one of our last projects, done also with Professor John Abdallah, is these bridges for the main entrance, these ramps, the main entrance of Sagrada Familia, that here in Little, we see left below, the ramps that goes to the main entrance, that now Sagrada Familia have not this possibility to have the access in the main entrance, because it's in process. And we was proposing to the architect director of the Sagrada Familia, and he liked it a lot. But let's see, we was proposing all these designs of paraboloids, hyperboloids, etc. That also digital tools allows us. And another possibility to do with the digital tools is meshing, is pixelations, is organizing these nets of structures. And in this case was for a market in Casablanca in Morocco, taking the traditional basketry of Morocco and the traditional carpets of Morocco and the geometries of Arabic architecture to for organize a full roof with these patterns and a full floor pavement with these colors, thanks to the pixelation that in digital tools allows you to control exactly every little piece for do this colorful pavement, and also organizing this with this kind of canopies with tensors, so that this basketry type of canopies, as lilies, for example, do in nature, are more interesting to have a free space around, as you see here, to have a big free space, and with these basketry canopies forgive the shadow and for make space. Another project, in this case, with other possibilities of digital tools, that is organizing designs with force fields, with attractors, was a park in Cornellà, close to Barcelona, that again, as you can see, for example, in the grain of wood, how these lines are so similar to magnetic lines, and how digital tools allows you also with these attractors to organize a absolutely harmonical design. So of course, following the vegetation or the activities, the flow bands that it's organized here, or how to the organization of the parts or of the ways, but being sure that every line, every little curve here, because it's managed by digital tools, it have an intrinsic harmony in all them. And this is something that is a big advantage of digital tools, that we need not more to be Michelangelos or Gaudis for make something absolutely harmonical. We only need to use digital tools and the possibilities that digital tools offer us. Also with force fields, I was organizing this, designing this housing, this solar passive housing, and all the park around, so that how flows the park and the green is how also comes these housings, and following the sun, searching the sun for half every apartment, his winter garden with the possibility to have passive solar housing. Another design was for this museum, using the possibility of fractals. Of course, because the Arabic architectural patterns give us a kind also of fractal geometry, the possibility to follow fractal geometry. This case was also a big park with a kind of archaeological sites that we need to preserve and to organize little pavilions for preserve these excavations. And all was organized by these patterns, also with the idea of fractality in the geometry of Arabic patterns. And now another possibility with digital tools, fractals, because fractals is something that is common in nature too. If you see that everything in nature is organized in fractality. So the big forms are following little forms that are following microscopical forms. And with this three level of fractality, nature arrived to have a very much efficient structure. And in this case, we was designing a kind of telecommunication antenna. Normally, antennas are a kind of vertical towers, but in this case, I wanted to have not a vertical tower, but a kind of a crown, a light crown. By night, it will be illuminated, and by day, these balls here are solar collectors also, because the idea was to organize not only an antenna, but also a kind of autosufficient, a self-sufficient fractal machine of purification of air. I don't know if you see here, I will take this here, but anyway, the point is that here, of course, here first was the study of fractality of this well, the entreleón that we say in Spanish, yeah. But here the fractality that we can see in this little plant was reproduced in 8 levels in this case, following the law of fractality until having a whole dome. And it's in this dome that we are organizing the antennas, the parabolic antennas, the linear antennas, the balls of collectors, and the light by night. For have this kind of Stadtkrone that Bruno Taut was speaking in the in last century. But also this fractality allows us to have this air purification machine, so that from every little tube we take the air around, and this was for Santiago de Chile, that is a very contaminated city. And of course, it's not for arrange all the contamination of the city, but it's only for a kind of symbolic machine. And taking the air through all these tubes, and with the filters inside, having purified air in the middle, where the people comes to the restaurant, to see the views from this mountain, etc. But we go now to another kind of possibilities that digital tools allows us, that is Voronoi. And Voronoi is really a fascinating kind of structure that allows efficiency in structures, in behaviors, in functionalities of plants and animals. And you will see that plants and animals in all the levels of scales of them, you can find the Voronoi pattern. For this design, this was a multifunctional building and a park in Austria. I was taking the idea of Voronoi for organize this the diversity, for organize spatial richness, for organize hierarchical paths, so that as we learn from nature, because this is all the time the sentence that I put here below, from biolearning to digital tools. So with biolearning, learning from nature, learning that nature teach you this kind of organization that is an harmonical organization, that is a more efficient organization, and that have hierarchies in the structure, a primary hierarchy, a second hierarchy, what is organizing surface, what is organizing structure. So this let you organize also something that is more complex thanks to digital tools. So complexity takes interest, takes attraction for the human perception. And in this case was also the whole organization of the streets, of the squares, of the haven, the port, and also the building. Every time looking with the electron microscope to the Voronoi structures, and with the same Voronoi idea, this design was also, of course, solar passive housing, organizing this whole building. From one side as Voronoi structure, but also as a self-sufficient house. So to say, as was the antenna, because for sustainability, we need to think that everything that we do, we need to implement it in self-sufficiency. So in this case, using urban agriculture, urban beekeeping, and having here little shops for sell the flowers, or the vegetables, or the honey that the bees do in all this building, that in the middle have so hanging gardens, and here also the diagram of the solar working. Here you see the different Voronoi structures. In this case, is from a rose petal with 800 magnification, or here is of pollen. So you see that for surfaces as a rose petal, or for the pollen, so functions very different, and one is on surface, another is a volume. Or here, if you cut a section of a cactus, you can also see the three-dimensionality of the Voronois inside of the Voronoi tubes of the cactus. So this gives you the idea of how we need to think our structures if nature is telling this to you. Someone is, but I don't know how to do this because someone is calling for questions. Maybe it's better we finish and we have the questions. Also with Voronoi, I was designing this market. In this case, for Peru, for Lima, you see here also the fractality of the leaves with 3 levels of Voronois for organizing with the idea of the stomatas, this how leaves are breathing. So in the same way, we organize a full market that is organized with agricultural roofs, that you can sell in the shops, but everywhere, as you see, is the shops around patios, specialized patios, but also between the shops are the more little patios for bread. So we have a kind of structure, as you see here, that is the shops around little patios for oxygenize, for have the circulation of air from the bottom of the parking to the roof, so that we are being sure that all is very good with the air around, because there is little patios, but also around with these more social, with possible socialities, possibilities, patios bigger around the other level of different organization of fractal Voronois, as I was explaining to you. And now also we are in the last part of this little speech. Yeah, this was an installation also with a Voronoi structure of snails, as you see here, following a pattern of Voronoi. Voronoi that with the tension between these columns, we do cables, and we hang carbage leaves that snails like a lot, in a kind of metaphor, no? Because it's symbolically associate the Voronoi of the skin of the snails that you see that have also this fractal structure, a big Voronoi with little Voronois and cellular little Voronoi organization, and also the cabbage leaves that have bigger Voronois with more little Voronois with more little Voronois. So this fractality that we call in the installation infinite fractality, the installation, we let that the snails begin to eat here. So in a way to explain what will happen us if we don't begin to think where we are, which is our environment. No, these snails, of course, will eat so much until they will finish with the leaves, and the leaves will the snails will fall, so that. Well, it's as I told you, it's a kind of little metaphor about our planet, snails, and fractalities. Anyway, our problem, as you know, is COVID, and we was also helping a little with things of COVID, with our 3D printers, organizing these designs and fabrication of masks for the doors, handles, so that you don't need to open the door with the hand, and also designing different types of masks here, and also for architecture. Thinking that the problem when all the people was closed in his houses, and they have not balconies, they had really problems of compared with people that have terraces or balconies. So we was designing a kind of also Voronoi balconies, very light structures that we can hang directly in the facades of houses that maybe have not balconies, not terraces, so that people can be a little more happy in this moment of COVID. And also because this pandemic, after 2 months that we was closed and nobody was cutting grass, cutting and nothing in the streets, you know, all these YouTube videos that come, the animals inside of the cities and all this. This was a big discovery, because close to my house, all these plants was growing that never was there before. Never I had close to my house this kind of fantastical, amazing flowers, little flowers, and they only was growing because nobody was cutting nothing during 2 months. So this was the action to say, okay, biodiversity and our planet will be very much happy if humans don't go out from his homes. And I was designing this kind of little signals and little words for put in places so that the people take care of this question of let life grow. As in the beginning I was telling to you, let houses grow, let cities grow, let planets grow. And with this other action that we was painting in this special tree in Barcelona that have these forms, we was painting little A's, also with the students around the city, making a kind of action to say, okay, we need to wake up to nature, but also that nature wake up and see us. So these have this both ideas that we need to take attention of nature, wake up to nature, but also attention because nature is watching us. And if we have not exactly good behaviors, this will be a big problem for us if we don't take care of what nature can show us, what nature can teach us, and what we can learn from nature. So thank you for listening. I hope all of you arrive until this point. And well, so I am happy to be here and to share all this with you.
Thank you, Doctor. We have some questions. If you actually were raising hands, yes, Dr. Abir.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for this very interesting talk. I really admire your attempts to work with biomimicry and bioarchitecture, but I have so many comments coming out from your talk. I don't know exactly where to start with, but if I start with that example that you brought up from Barcelona city, Barcelona is a city that is trying to become a smart city now in the 21st century. Yet they are, you said that you are working on a project for the city to kind of include or put kind of biomimicry or bioarchitecture in that city. So that contradiction between going to be smart, where you ignore the human being kind of, and their attempt to do biomimicry maybe summarizes what I want to say. Now, the concept is, the dilemma is much deeper than working with one building or one object like furniture piece or artifact or even a building, but it has to go into more factors, into more depth to tackle social, political, economic issues, which biomimicry is short of doing this. Biomimicry, in a way, is for me is kind of a new fad for achieving sustainability, but on the level of the building. So in a way, it deals with the part rather than the whole as a system. So, for example, you use biomimicry either to satisfy some environmental issues or structural, or sometimes you turn biomimicry into kind of creating new aesthetics, like when you brought that example of Gaudi. So Gaudi did not go deep into the genetics of the architecture as much as he dealt with architecture in terms of form making with reference to nature. So, I don't know how we can expand biomimicry to work on the level of the urban and the city and the social, so that we can tackle issues as pollution, as you mentioned. And for me now, biomimicry is very much enclosed within its boundaries of creating kind of a building that is talking to itself only.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, the point is, for one side, I don't like so much the word biomimicry because includes the idea of imitation. And this is not exactly what I want. Or
bioarchitecture, okay, bioarchitecture.
Because it's not about bio imitation, it's more or biomimicry. It's more about bio-learning, about what we can learn from nature. So from nature, we can learn all. We can learn absolutely all. How to build, how to live, how to take food, how to organize us, absolutely all. So we need only to see everything and to ask to nature how nature is solving what we need to solve. in this way, I am proposing different things. Of course, I cannot solve all the planetary problems, but for example, nature is teaching us you have a way of have natural light. You have a way of have natural heat. You have a way of have a natural organization of societies. That is, for example, what we can learn from nature in an urban scale, in a territorial scale. First is something that I was telling a little fast, self-organization and self-sufficiency. This is absolutely a first lesson that nature teaches for living in urban environments. What this means from things very, very specifically, for example, why I am eating cherries from Chile when I am in Europe, for example. Yeah, because it's Christmas and the cherries comes by plane, but cherries is for April, not for December in Europe. So, but people are doing this, and in December is full of cherries and grapes and things that are not appropriate for the time and the so on. So the first point that nature is teaching us is not take things that are so far away. So you need to be self-sufficient in different areas. So how you can be self-sufficient yourself, you as human, as person, individually. How you can be self-sufficient in your room and your habitat of your family. How you can be self-sufficient in the area, in the neighborhood that you are living. So these things is what in a human scale we need to think, also in a fractality of self-sufficiency. But it's crazy that we are not thinking in this way. So we are not learning that nature is not working so. A tree is not importing things from America. A tree is living in the place that he is. And this is something that Gaudí was teaching. Gaudí was not only someone that is making crazy forms. He was understanding how works the structures of nature. And when someone was only seeing the surfaces of the forms of Gaudí, they asked to Gaudí, from where you take this imagination? Which is your master, your teacher? And he said, my teacher is this tree. He had a tree close to his office. No? And this is my teacher, not Le Corbusier, Mies, or whatever that are working for Middle Europe, for the conditions that are able in other countries. So this is another point, that the use of the low technique that nature gives us, not the biological nature. So this is why also I was speaking about solar passive architecture. So which possibilities the physicality of nature give us to work in a very much self-sufficient way. So all this that have to do with the thinking in self-sufficiency have to do to solve urban problems and the problems of all the countries that they are thinking in movement all the time. And for example, in Spain is crazy. We have a lot of big cars traveling all the ways and not trains, for example. What is the problem? That one train contaminates very much less as the 50 big cars that takes things of the trains. Yeah, but the problem is that ecology will be only solved if we solve the social problems. So it's nothing. We cannot solve the sustainability problems, the ecological problems of the planet, if we don't think at the same time in the social problems. Because as I tell you this of the train, the problem is that are 50 families that are living from these 50 drivers with the big cars, and only one family lives of the big train that transport what 50 cars transports. So the problem is, again, no, we need to balance. Another thing that we need to understand from nature is the balance of things. We need to balance the social and the ecology all the time. And we cannot solve one thing without the other. It's what it's called the integral ecology. So, of course, we need sociologists and urbanists and a lot of politics that works together with biologists, with geneticists, with architects, whatever. No? So, I don't know if I answer or not so much the question, or some points that we can discuss. Or
yeah, we have Dr. Abdel Mahsen.
Good evening. Thank you very much for a very stimulating lecture. And I have great respect to your work. And I think just stimulating the imagination in the direction of nature, biology, sustainability, and also to some extent you touched upon social aspects. This is great in itself. Now, allow me to be a little bit critical in certain parts. It seems to me that in several works, you are geared towards biological forms rather than biological processes and sustainability. And I will give some examples. For example, the park that resembles the grains of wood. This could have, this park could have utilized rainwater collection, beautiful umbrellas in Morocco with fantastically beautiful texture and surface treatment of ornamental arabesque ornaments. These could have been utilized for dew collection, collecting water from the air. In Qatar University, nothing was mentioned about climatic treatment except the fenestration or the cloistra treatment of surfaces. But there are a lot of things in the Arab heritage related to wind catchers, wind towers, evaporative cooling, thermal mass. All of these could have been utilized so that you can have a real sustainability, not only biological forms. You talked about self-sufficiency in housing, and this is, I think, is probably one of the most important areas for the world today, because the limited income people are not cared for enough, especially by imaginative architects. The star architects are always in the direction of forms and related to big companies and big projects, mega projects.
Yeah.
And they neglect low-cost housing. And you are trying to do something here, but you did not give enough details about it. Last point, a specific point, the work in Seville, in the huge plaza in Seville with a wooden roof. Do you consider it also to be digital, biologically digital architecture? And what is your comment on that? I thank you very much. I respect your work very much. Thank you.
No, from one side, two things. From one side, what you say about wind towers, etc. Yes, as I was showing you the section of my project of the university in Qatar that is organized as all with wind towers, and is organized also with pergolas that make shadows, etc. Yeah. Also, the project of the Sahara little house that I was also showing you is organized with the possibility to have geothermal energy, and also with a kind of tubes that allows to have ventilation. It's also taking the typology of this little house is take it from the traditional typology of Sahara houses that have these central patios, etc. So of course sometimes the low technology of vernacular architecture is teaching you also a lot of things. Only that vernacular architecture, it's interesting because it's also a kind of evolution that you can take advantage. So when something is vernacular architecture, traditional architecture, means that it has survived during thousands of years. So this means that an architecture that can survive thousands of years is as in biology happens, that the processes and systems of biology, of plants, animals, is because they have survived all the proofs of living. So the most strongest, the most efficient works better. This happened in a kind of biological comparison with vernacular architecture and with low technique that vernacular architecture have. So this is also why I was showing you my designs about solar passive architecture that have to do with vernacular architecture. Yeah? The other point was about what was the when we were speaking about now I forget. See, if you can repeat, please, the last points.
Well, maybe you are talking about Seville and
Seville.
Plaza in Seville.
And
but allow me to say that in relation to rainwater collection and dew collection, there is a lot of frontier to be discovered and incorporated into biologically digital architecture.
No, of course. And when we mention about self-sufficiency, of course, means that you need to collect all your water. You cannot only, as nature do. Nature is taking and remaining. Nature don't produce waste. So this is something important for us for learn in cities, in houses, not produce waste. And we produce a lot of waste. If comes water from outside, we need to take it and to use it very much as we do, because we take water and they goes, and we do water they goes, and it's. About Sevilla, it's, well, of course, it's something that it's done by digital tools, and it's only possible to build with digital tools and to digital fabrication. Yeah? Another thing is if this is expensive, not expensive, useful, not useful. Of course, in Sevilla, it needs to have shadows and to have humidity, because in summer it's absolutely crazy, the temperatures, etc. Yeah, but yeah, maybe we need to see if really the balance is okay. The balance to do the effort of this building in Sevilla, or the balance what this means in resources. But also in this point, sometimes we need also to do other kind of efforts or other kind of waste of energy, because humans have other needs. And this is also an important point. And this is also the point that I was telling about the need of designing harmonical things, because humans needs to be involved in beauty, and humans needs it's a human need to have a nice house, not to live in houses that is better that nobody see because you shame of your house. No, for you will be great that the people come and see, wow, what a nice house you have. So this is also a human need, so much as our need of drink or food or to be comfortable. We have also another needs, and also the point of symbolic or the point of enthusiasm of beauty that can have this building in Sevilla as others of other architects in the world is somehow also a need of humans, that someone is something very amazing that you go and you are happy to see this. And so sometimes we need to see again the balance between needs and between resources for use it. And if was a human need to have this big building that of course you can have very much cheaper buildings for the same use. But sometimes we learn also from nature that not always nature is absolutely efficient. And this is also something symbolically. For example, where nature is absolutely no efficient is in reproduction, because you see how many seeds or eggs or pollen expand around, and how many really grows as a definitive being. How many fruits and seeds of trees falls, and how less they grow as trees. So this is also something interesting, because nature somehow is teaching us that love needs to be generous, infinite. And reproduction is the symbol of love. No? So somehow we can have this excess of resources, of energy, as nature teaches us for reproduction, because it's something that also humans needs. But okay, I don't know if somehow I can answer these points or that we can discuss.
Thank you, Doctor. We have only 2 written questions so far, and we can wrap up then. The question from Noor: do you think that deconstructivism as a whole movement in architecture, using the what can be drawn can be built, not following the geometrical way and form follow function, is a way to solve problems in our cities today?
I don't understand exactly. Deconstructivism is a way to solve problems, you mean?
Yes, it's in terms of not following the geometrical way and form, and to follow function.
To say that deconstructivism is not follow function, is this the point?
Let me read it again for you. Do you think that deconstructivism as a whole movement in architecture, using the what can be drawn can be built, not following the geometrical way and form follow the function, is a way to solve problems in our cities?
Well, I don't understand exactly, but anyway, well, deconstructivism is yes, it's a movement of the 80s. Is now not more. Well, was a very trendy movement, and all the people was doing the constructivism, but all the people that was the pioneers of the constructivism, they moved to digital architecture. So you see, Kopp Himmelblau, Zaha Hadid, all this was pioneers in the constructivism. Of course, Frank Gehry, in the 80s, they was the pioneers in the constructivism, and they move in the beginnings of the 20th century ones, or Gary First in the late 90s, they moved to digital architecture. That is not the constructivist architecture, it's the organic architecture, is the digital organicism. So are different things. I don't understand exactly if this have to do, if the constructivism is not follow function or whatever. But anyway, you can have perfect deconstructivism architecture that is follow function without problem. And this is another thing that we can learn in nature, that is not, but understood the idea of form follow function, because it's not what happened in biology. If you see this from the internal side of biology, if you see from outside, from an external observation of biology, if you see this as a historical evolution of biology, you can think that forms follow function. That was what Sullivan began to think in 1892. But it's not exactly this. In nature, first is form, and after comes function. So cells don't understand if they are growing for be hand or for be air or whatever. When cells grows, and later the form that cells are organized can be used, this begins to evolve. Yeah, I mean, first comes the form, and if the form is able to be used for some specific functions, this form is successful and will continue. If the form don't works for the functions that it's needed, the form will dead and will not continue, will not evolve. But what is first is form. So this is also something that architects and designers can learn from nature, that first is our idea in form. And we need to make a fusion of how needs to work functionally perfect and functionally efficient our forms. But form comes before. So this is very problematic, and it's very interesting to discuss. And maybe we need another another evening to discuss. But think about, because cells first organized in forms and later will be used as functions. But also the mind of architects is working first in forms, and at the end we try to make the fusion. And this is very interesting, because the sentence of Gaudí that says forging the form of the idea. The words that I was showing to you is written of Gaudí, that the challenge is to forge the form of the idea. So first we have the idea, and we need to give a form, and these forms need to be functional, and needs to be efficient, and needs to work well, etc. But if this form don't works functionally and efficiently, we change and we search another form. But so
yeah, I would like to thank you again, Dr. Alberto, and this was very informative and inspiring lecture, actually, and mostly a bit new for our area, maybe. And we can wrap up now, and hope to see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention and for your kindness. Okay,
thank you. Take
bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye.